Hi, in today's video I'd like to talk about right hand techniques and how they affect the tone of a guitar that you can get. So basically I think about my picking hand as my EQ. This is my source of the sound and possibly the most powerful factor that creates the tone on a guitar. And here's why. Let's start with the most basic stuff, which is flat picking. I use small jazz pick, which is this is Jazz 3 made by Dunlop. So it has very small, spiky, sharp end, and what it gives me is basically I have very precise way of strumming the notes, which means that the pick doesn't really slip along the string that much, so there is not too much friction and I get the clarity and precision that I want, and at the same time it changes a lot the way that my wrist would behave normally with any other shape of the pick. So this is how I flat pick. So the idea is that my wrist is almost stationary. It moves very little, and most of the picking movement comes from the finger. So I tend to use my pick almost like a pencil. So there is a precise movement in the fingers and basically very little in the wrist, and some movement of the forearm when I move from the top to bottom strings. So my hand moves just a little bit in the range of from the top to the bottom string. This gives me very clear and consistent tone when I need it. So for example, if I want to play jazz runs or melodies where there aren't too many notes but I expect them to be very clear and very articulated. There's also a gentle side to it, so basically I have very predictable response whether I strum lightly or strum with a full force of my picking hand. So the advantage is that I have quite a lot of control of the notes that I play and consistent tone. But there are situations where I have to reach for hybrid picking, which is strumming with a pick and fingers at the same time. And because I already have my opposite thumb and my index finger close together, it affects the way that my fingers behave. So naturally our hand wrist tends to close. All the fingers naturally want to stay relaxed and stay in this kind of clenched position. So whenever I have a pick and I want to use my fingers, there are certain limitations that come with that. So let's have a look how we can deal with that and what possibilities are there with this position of the hand and what is it good for. I can alternate between pick and any of the fingers. So right now I'm playing downstrokes with my pick and upstrokes with fingers. What is it good for? If I want to have a broader dynamic range, if I want to snap certain notes, or if I want to play double stops or chords, well, it basically gives me the possibility to do the percussive snaps and shorter notes. The problem is that whenever the string is in the same line of the pick and fingers, it's hard to stay precise because the pick and finger clash in a very, very narrow space over the string. So as such, this technique is really good if I want to spread my notes over adjacent strings, or if I want to play string skips. So for example, this lick that will use third and first string. Basically, pick is operating over the third string and my fingers are over the first string. So this way it's a little bit easier because I don't have to I don't have to place my pick and play alternating strings, although it is possible. But it's way more work, and this way I can play my picking notes just with my fingers, with a movement of index finger and thumb. Although it might seem that my wrist is moving, but I'm holding on the bridge, I'm holding on the guitar, so it doesn't. So this is one of the ways to use it. Sometimes I like to switch between flat pick and just bare hands, and there are a couple of ways to do it. Sometimes I just ditch the pick altogether. I just put it away and play with my bare hands. Great thing about that is that I play with soft tips of my fingers. I tend not to snap the strings with my fingernails, so I get this more mellow, softer sound if I wish. And what is great about this technique that it introduces certain variations between notes, between tone and articulation of the notes, because usually when thumb and fingers are in the same line on a single string, thumb tends to plug the string closer to the neck and fingers tend to sound closer to the bridge. So we have this distinctive difference between notes that are played with thumb and fingers. So we can think of them as implementation of ideas of flat picking, but onto bare hand. So I can think of my downstrokes as a thumb note and upstrokes as a notes played by fingers. So, for example, if I want to play a single note line, and there comes this quite clear difference that certain notes are softer or dampened or a little bit darker because they're strummed in a different place here in between pickups. sometimes when I want to switch between techniques, I can tuck my pick in between my fingers. So usually I can do it while playing. I just do this, so it's between my index and middle finger, and when my fingers are rounded, I still have. It doesn't bother me at all that it's still there. Whenever I need to reach for my pick, it's just there in between my fingers, for example, for single line parts, and I can play rhythms with my fingers. Okay, what unfortunately you can't do with your bare hands, with just with your fingers, is getting this characteristic snap of finger picking guitar, because essentially in finger picking ragtime guitar, like Chet Atkins does or Merle Travis, we play both bass and the chords with one strum of the thumb. So basically that's where thumb pick is the most useful thing we can think of. So I use these. This is like a medium and medium shorter version of thumb pick. I tend to put it a little bit further down my thumb, and again here's where the fun starts, because I can do all the comping just with my thumb. So this is basically just the sound of the thumb. So without a thumb pick, it would be really hard to get any useful sound out of these middle strings. It's way harder to precisely strum just middle 2 or 3 strings. The main disadvantage of thumb pick is that for a flat picker it may make impression that it's just like having a pick that is attached to your thumb, which is not really the case, because unfortunately it's quite firmly attached to your thumb, so it doesn't let go. It doesn't give you this wobble that usually you can control with your fingers when you flat pick, which is quite limiting, because it makes upstrokes way harder, or just limits us to have very firm, very hard attack on the upstrokes, because unfortunately it is what it is. It stays there. So we can hold it like a pick with index finger, but it doesn't make things any better, because it's still very stiff. So let's have a look how would it work as a substitute for a normal flat pick. So all the notes are very harsh, if that's the sound you're going for, cool. Unfortunately, I find this to be a limitation. So whenever I have my thumb pick, I usually tend to alternate between thumb and fingers when I want to play a single line. just like we had with bare hands, it's really great to play skips between strings because there is basically no effort. Your wrist is stationary. It's just it's over the strings. You know where to expect strings. You don't do any extra movements just to change the string, and they're just all there under their respective fingers most of the time. So you can keep your snappy sounds and very clear bass notes. So that's actually a great thing about Thumbpick. But again, whenever we want to play a single note line that is spread over consecutive strings, it's usually a little bit harder to get this clarity because thumb and fingers, they get in their way, unfortunately. So there's always some trade-off of sound and certain fluidity and just being comfortable with playing with this technique. So let's have a look again at a couple of good things that these techniques are for. So starting with Thumbpick, playing chords and playing double stops, triple stops whenever we need a couple of notes being strummed together. Here was another example. I wanted to play this kind of scale run. It's just G major scale, but it's spread over the strings. And because Thumbpick is basically not meant to be a replacement for alternate flat picking, I had to spread the scale over the strings. So it's G and A are on separate strings, and B is open string. Because rolls, which means playing thumb and fingers just in their order. This is basically like a primary technique for Thumbpick. This is like a primary thing, and of course finger picking, so comping with your thumb and melodies and embellishments with fingers. Okay, another thing, flat pick, well, obviously for consistency. Consistency and precision. Mellow tone if I want to, and powerful if I need to. Okay, and of course bare hands. Great for comping, great for mellow tone, great for rootsy stuff. So each of these right hand techniques like offers different palette of tones, different choice of sounds that I can get without touching my pickup selector or tone controls or EQ on the amp. This is where it happens. This is like a core source of the sounds that I like to use. And whenever I feel that something sounds too shrill or too harsh, that's usually the first thing that I change, is changing my playing technique. I'll readjust to what I want to hear. So this is basically the essential idea behind knowing at least three different right hand techniques. Okay, hope you learned something new today, and see you next time.